For a review of stories making the headlines in the papers, with me in the studio is public affairs analyst Ambrose Igoke. Thank you for joining us this morning, Ambrose.
Thank you, Erica.
Let's head straight to the papers now. Vanguard here says alleged certificate forgery. Court voids Adeleke's nomination for Osun governorship poll. It's miscarriage of justice, Adeleke. And then we move to the New Telegraph. How airlines, drug barons implicate Nigerians. Federal government says the execution of Nigerians in Saudi Arabia pathetic. We move to the blueprint. Buhari, why I declined assent to Ajakuta company bill. 7 others rejects NAS debt figures for states. To the Guardian now, Wike leads Rivers poll in 13 out of 15 councils. AAC promises to challenge outcome in court. And the Daily Sun, Buhari accuses NAS of padding, says lawmakers inflated debt federal government owes states, cites Delta Joraba figures as example, senators keep mum. And this day, in the Wike leads in 13 local government areas as INEC continues collation of results today. Army stays away, police take charge of security. PDP hails court verdict dismissing AAC's quest to halt tally. And the Daily Trust, final paper here, constituency projects, ICPC to prosecute politicians, contractors who divert funds. Ambrose, I'm sure the story would interest you. Alleged certificate forgery, court voiding Adeleke's nomination for Osun governorship poll. We know that there's been a judgment already on the results initially, where it says that, okay, Adeleke won, and now we are having this. What dynamics does this bring to the mix of the different judgments we are getting?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, but from hindsight, it is very clear that this is a pre-election matter.
Yes. And
pre-election matters are supposed to be dispensed 21 days. So I think this is coming rather late, because there's a similar case like that after the gubernatorial election, and the court threw it out on technical grounds. Well, we'll leave the lawyers to do the permutations and the legal kinetics concerning this. But this is a pre-election matter. There are two sides of the coin here. One, if he's found guilty, certificate forgery itself is a crime. Then the criminal aspect can be followed. Yes. Then the other aspect is if it is really, if it really forged, then it's a pre-election matter. Whether the time has elapsed before that is not, because I think it has elapsed. So they may throw it out on appeal because it is technically
because he's saying it's a miscarriage of justice that Adeleke is speaking here.
Yeah, I think they should also appeal that.
It shouldn't stand.
Yeah, because judicial precedents have shown that it's 21. The pre-election matters have to be dispensed of within 21 days.
But one wonders why it took so long for this ruling to come.
Maybe they didn't file in for expedited hearing. Sometimes when you file a case, you don't allow you to take the cause. You file for expedited hearing. I think there's some process you have to go with that to do that. So pre-election matters have to be dispensed very fast, because why this was brought into the mix was that sometime in the past, when we started this democratic experiment from 1999, political opponents have used this as a way of reversing a lot of gains done during elections, and then go to a pre-election matter 1 year, even when the governor has already been sworn in, and so it was a big issue in the legal process.
But he is a senator, and we know the processes that senators go through in terms of the DSS going through their details and all of that. One wonders, okay, so why these things didn't come up at such points?
There is this tradition in the Senate, take a bow, so the guy just took a bow. Were we not here when a minister that was screened by the Senate found out that the certificate was forged? Were we not here? And the minister served for like 3 years. The same thing, we have the issues of somebody who was not, who didn't do the compulsory youth service, yeah. And also he's still there as a minister. So what are we talking about? Though this gets to tell you that we are not structured. We are not, and that is why this kind of things happen.
Could this be one of the issues that is not strengthening our democratic or electoral processes as well?
I don't know why we want to isolate politicians to be the saints. It is the society that threw up a politician. Is it the society that threw up a Nigerian? So the politicians are first of all Nigerians. So it is our own values as a society that is manifesting in the Senate, in the executive, in the religious institutions, in schools and everywhere. So the ethos is what is the problem. Therefore, when politicians behave the way they behave, because they're in the limelight, they think they're the only ones that behave like that. Cascade it down to the ordinary man in the street. That is the typical Nigerian behavior. So until we start evolving a national ideology, value system, and orientation, we'll continue to be like this.
All right, another story that we would want us to look at is that it's on the blueprint where Buhari says, I declined assent to Ajakuta Coal Bill. He declined assent, rather, to Ajakuta Steel Company Bill and 7 others. He said that because of the amount that is required to be injected into the steel company, about $1 billion or so, and he's saying that that amount, there are other pending matters that the monies can be used for, and so we don't need to inject such an amount into the steel company.
I think the greatest mistake that happened to Nigeria was in the 70s. I think it was the government of Murtala Obasanjo government that annexed all institutions and made it a nationalization decree. I think it was either Gawan or Obasanjo Murtala regime. That was the greatest mistake that happened to Nigerian business ecosystem. Because after that, government took over, the indigenization took over all multinational and individual assets. And then it became a behemoth. Government could not manage anything. So the Ajakuta Steel Plant is one of the biggest shame that Nigeria has ever come across. A steel plant that was invested, so much has been invested, and it has never really picked up. Even a lesser one like the Delta Steel Company in Onwe Alaja that later picked up in Warri, they allowed it to die. And so when Obasanjo wanted to leave government around 2006, 2007, the issue of turnaround maintenance time of NNPC came up too. And they gave bogus figures like this, in billions of dollars for turnaround maintenance. And the man said he had to sell it. Because some people came, because the experts who were advising the president then told him that this thing is like it's a write-off. It cannot have value, so let's revamp it. And then I think some Koreans came and offered, I think, some billions of dollars to buy. So Obasanjo said he felt like, oh well, if the turnaround maintenance would take me $10 billion and these people are offering like $3 billion, let me sell it. He sold it, and there was a national outcry. And then that came in and reversed it. Where are we? NNPC is not still working. This is 13 years down the line. The same thing here now. Ajakuta Steel Company is going the same route. Since the 1980s, it has been there.
But then there was an agreement at some point with the Russians, which we did not really play our part, and they had to leave. But when you see the commitment of the government towards, ensuring that this plant is revived, how do we then see that, or what would you make, rather, of the government's commitment to ensuring this is revived? Because we are looking at diversifying the economy, and we don't want to rely anymore on oil.
I think the government should just sell Ajakuta Steel Plant. They should just sell it and spare us this. The $1 billion for what? For a company that we have injected so much money. If we calculate how much we have invested,
we have injected so much. Have we been following up on all of the $1
billion will go the same way. The $1 billion is going to go the same way. So the best thing is it has become a conduit pipe for some entrenched interests in Nigeria. This $1 billion will disappear the way others have been disappearing. So I think it should just go up for a bid and it should be sold. They are talking about selling national assets to raise money, and somebody was talking about national theater. Why should we talk about national theater when Ajakuta is lying down there? Do you know how many guest houses in Ikoyi that the federal government had that they don't even know their own?
But you know how it has been when it comes to privatizing or selling of companies or places like this. When you look at the issue of electricity, we've been struggling.
But at least, look, when you sell these assets that are non-functional, first of all, government does not have a hand in business. The best the government can do is do a concession or do a partnership that let the operator be a private entity while the government owns it, sits on the board, and you can share equity, just like we're doing the JVs, the joint ventures in oil drilling and oil exploration. Imagine if it was Nigeria that if it was NNPC that is drilling the oil, we won't even produce up to 100,000 barrels per day. But because there's a JV, and then the people are, although NNPC have been asked to run it now, but that JV, so government, the highest government could do, they don't want to sell it outright, to do a JV and let the private sector operate it. The other one, for example, where would Nitel have been today if not for the democratization of the telecom sector? And we see what has come out from it. The disco, although they are still struggling now, the Gencos and the rest, but it is better for Nigeria because it was better than when NEPA was a behemoth. And then one man in Abuja was controlling the NEPA in a village in Zamfara, in a village in Bayelsa. So it doesn't work that way. Therefore, we should prioritize our interests because, as you say, oil is actually fizzling out. So we need to find a place to encourage our economy. And that has to do with steel plant. If you don't have a steel plant, your technology is going nowhere.
Of course.
Your technology is going nowhere. And because that is the basics for a lot of establishment of mechanical industries. And that cannot work if we don't have it. Oshogbo rolling mill was there. The DSC and Ajaokuta were supposed to feed the Oshogbo rolling mill, just rolling mill and other things. Where are we? Nowhere. Why are we not being able to exploit our solid minerals? Also because we don't even have the steel. We have to bring in everything, import everything to do that. All the money wasted in training metallurgical engineers in the 70s, where are they?
Where are they?
So because they are supposed to run the Ajaokuta Steel Plant and DSC, Delta Steel Company, where are they? Some of them are falling off that. My uncle was one of the beneficiaries.
My dad was one.
So I know what I'm talking about. Therefore, it is a waste. It's a culture of waste that we have. And I think the President Muhammadu Buhari should sell off this asset and then sell it off at a good rate, or do a JV with this that private sectors will run. Otherwise, some people, some entrenched interests in the ministries, some entrenched interests.
Yes, there were entrenched interests, which some persons were, were trying to, fight against, because at some point, certain persons, rather, in the ministries were pointed out as being interested in taking over the steel company. But then, what should Nigeria do in terms of when it has assets like this, beyond the sale? We have this asset. Maintenance has been a challenge. Where do is it our political will to, handle these things properly? Because we know when it comes to the terms of employment, we know what this could have done for a lot of Nigerians, even in that axis.
Well, first of all, you have to have an industry working for you to employ people. An industry that don't be working for 35 years, 40 years, cannot employ anybody. The same technocrat, the same people in the ministry have been asked to revamp the sector for a long time now. Yeah. Money has been pumped into it. So that means they're incapacitated. They cannot do it. It's just a conduit pipe for some fraud. Therefore, what will happen is now they are requesting for $1 billion. From who? Therefore, the government should sell it. The government should have the political will to sell it off. Because there's no other answer. We have been groping with it for 40 years. It can't work anymore. So sell it. And when you sell it, then you can now say, or you can say, this thing, when I'm selling it to a private entity, you must employ the quota for employment. You cannot state that and say, okay, maybe 80% will be Nigerian. 80% of your board will be Nigerian. The MD will be a Nigerian. You set up your rules, just like other countries do, so that some people from some national don't come and overrun the place. So we can do that plant is one of the most modern steel plants in the world. There are the first set of fully automated steel plants, DSC and Ajaokuta. Those days, by the time they were built in the 70s, I mean, most of the steel plants in Europe were still very, very archaic. All right. But they were the first automated.
Ambrose Igboke, thank you for your time on Paper Review this morning.